Shalom, shalom. First thing and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Those in this gospel, broad lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit. This is going into the one big, beautiful bill. There's several videos going out about this, and several brothers have put out videos on this. And I was actually giving my 2 cents on it because I was just doing a little research. Because when you go on social media, and this is why social media is bittersweet, it's hit and miss with information, because you have about 1,000 different channels, and they each would tell you something different about the same bill, which means ultimately they're interpreting the language wrong, or they don't really understand it, which is the same thing essentially, or they're just hearing what they want to hear. Okay, now while this can spell disaster, which will spell disaster for the economy because it will add $4 trillion to the deficit, allegedly. But at the same time, they're talking about tax cuts, which we know that it's always tax cuts for the billionaires, for the rich, because the rich can't necessarily exist without the poor. All right. And I say that in tandem because in order for the rich to stay rich, they have to take and steal and borrow money from the poor. So you have to have a working class. OK, like when you're eating at a dinner table, it's unlikely that you're going to eat at a dinner table with broken legs, because essentially you just eat on the floor. Right. But the dinner table, we're the legs that hold the dinner table up so the elites can eat, if that make any sense. Right. So these bills. OK, and you have to understand Esau's pig Latin, his language. OK, you have a bunch of gray areas with Esau because he's not straightforward. All right, the scriptures say he speaks sweetly with his lips, but inwardly he plans to overthrow. He wants to overthrow you. So even though the surface language of this bill seems to be pretty straightforward and pretty beneficial to the so-called working class, or the working class, I say, but deep down inside, it's what they're not telling you on the back end. It is because in the long run or in the short run, that will lead to a particular overhaul, is that the economy will collapse. So I was reading this, and of course, it says the one big beautiful bill, we're preparing your tax cuts. Now, to the average American, that sounds, oh yeah, they cutting taxes. But when you think about how much you're taxed, okay, on a daily basis, you're being taxed when you pay rent, you're being taxed when you get gas, you're being taxed at the stores, you're being taxed with light energy. Like when you break down your energy bills, you're looking at this tax, that tax, a service tax, a county tax. I'm like, wait, everything is a tax. Okay, when essentially you shouldn't even be paying taxes unless you have some type of residual income. And income is just basically something you're gaining profit off of. It's not an hourly or labor wage. So essentially they're ripping you off. So to save 16% or 14% being a working taxpayer, it's not really much. Okay, they're just saying, well, look, we're going to appear to ease the burden, but you're still going to pay hidden taxes. Like tax on alcohol, damn near what, 9%, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like I can buy a $40 bottle. Look, let's say I can buy a $60 bottle of Casamigos. At the end, I'm going to end up paying 65 plus for that bottle because of the tax and tariffs. So this is essentially, it's not looking good for Babylon the Great, all right? And this is not going to heal this place. Now, where is it at? Here, I was reading this. Now it says, invest in America's infrastructure, which that's a lie, because we know most of the money and the tax dollars go, in fact, to the military industrial complex and to Israel, all right? For the last 3 years, they've been sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. And guess who was paying for that? Us. Same thing with the transgender research and funding the Maxine Waters. All that came out of taxpayers' money. All of it. But invest in America's infrastructure, protects Americans' innovation, lower energy costs, empowers small businesses, permanently secures the border, increased child tax credit. See, that's a nigger woman's dream right here, to increase tax credit, because women essentially have kids to have a paycheck to get benefit off of, right? So if you got a baby mama and she got like 2 other kids and you can't see your kids, she's taking all the money. She's getting the extra 2-3 bands on top of what she's already getting in taxes. And then you times that by 3. So she's making bank. So this seems to be a match made in heaven, but they don't understand that this is getting ready to further explode the economy and pretty much is going to accelerate the collapse. Because for one thing, where all this money, where they going to get it from? And, you know, when you're printing money out of thin air, eventually you're just adding to the debt, right? So it went through the House debate, the House vote, the Senate debate, Senate vote, final passage. Now is waiting on a final signature, and I'm 99.9% sure that he's gonna sign it. You know, so yeah, man, everybody is just all over the place with this big beautiful bill. All right, so let's look at this. Tax-free tips overtime calculator, right? So this is basically, you can play with it. I had to come back to this. I didn't even notice this was down here. But saving $1,800 a year, I mean, yeah, it's not a lot, all right? Especially with the amount of money this devil is stolen. So I got a couple of videos here from Kim Iverson, but let's look at this demon right here, all right?
What?
All right, because this is one thing about niggas. And this is the reason why when you get stupid people platforms to spew their venom, then you just get a bunch of confusion, and you have thousands of channels on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, everybody trying to break this jargon down, which essentially, some things are on point, and what she's saying seems to be on point. But at the end of the day, a lot of times these people are just repeating what they heard other people say. Okay, these people are not scholarly. They don't understand laws or language, or they don't understand Esau's jargon. Like Jake now called himself investing in the stock market and knowing particular law and about maritime law. Jake, man, just go sit down somewhere. But let's listen to this broad, man, all right? Because one thing I do hope that I hope this counsel you nigga women, because we're about tired of you women just in general. It's about time you sit down and learn some respect. And in due time, you're going to learn that. So let's play this video real quick, see what this demon was talking about. And we'll listen to Kim Iverson's videos, and we'll get a couple of precepts. It's not going to be a long lesson. So here we go.
Boats is what got the win. I sat there and watched it for the whole. They said the 15, but it really was like 20 minutes. They won. They got it. So with this being said, all my nurses, all my doctors, all my CNAs, all my people who work at the nursing homes, get prepared, because you're about to be out of a job. All these little clinics around here in these small towns, they're about to close. This is about to be really ugly. It's about to get really ugly here in America. Yeah. All because of 4 fucking votes. And you know what? The Democrats was winning at first. It was going. I was like, this might be a good one. And then it started slowing down. Then it came to 4 motherfuckers who wanted to say, you know what? Let all them bitches die. That's really what it's giving. And I just feel for a lot of people. I feel for all the people that's in the nursing home who has Medicaid. Like, this is crazy. This is wild. This is gonna be the upside down for America right here.
America's already been upside down, all right? And that bill essentially will do away with basically niggas freeloading off the system. They're tired of funding you niggas, and that's just basically what it is. They get up and get a job, all right? Like you said, it's getting ready to get real ugly. Well, it's already ugly, and you finna get ugly. All right, because when they defund you black women, when they take away your child support and abolish your free welfare, your Section 8 and all this other stuff, but that's when a lot of you gonna really realize, like, damn, you didn't really messed up, because the men that you've pushed away ain't gonna come back to you. So you need to figure it out with them crooked ass edges. So let's read some of the comment boards, all right? Because of course, you got a lot of blacks here. And the black woman, only thing she cares about is being funded. Only thing she cares about is if she's just a selfish individual. And this is not about the woman, but these women are very selfish, man. The only thing they care about is who's funding their lifestyle and what they can get out of the mix. They can be as broke as 2 pennies rubbed together, but as long as they looking good and appear the part, that's all the hell they care about. As long as they can get some child support and some free assistance and allowed to run up and down and be whores and sluts, that's all that this woman cares about. But that day is coming to an end, all right? Because, this bill, at the end of the day, like I was mentioning earlier, it will have backlash. There will be backlash. And a lot of the things that they promised on, it just simply will not be fulfilled, all right? So it says, as the president has said on numerous times, there will be no cuts to Medicaid. It says the one big beautiful bill protects and strengthens Medicaid for those who rely on it, pregnant women, children, seniors, people with disabilities, and low income families. Yeah, well, the way it's looking now, I don't know about that. All right, because remember they had to go back and repackage some stuff, and who knows what this is gonna foretell, right? So, peep this. This is so sad. God is not pleased. God is still in control. Vengeance belongs to God. Okay. They got a felon running the United States of America, 34, count Trump. And see, it's mainly a lot of black women because they're getting afraid, because most of these women you see in the comment boards, they've been funded by this government through some type of welfare, whether it be, food stamps and Section 8 and TANF, whatever it may be. They've all been funded some way, somehow. And this is why you see in the biggest outcry among so-called black women, because they know that golden goose is getting ready. They're getting ready to get knocked off that cloud, so to speak. So this is why they're in the comment board spewing what they're spewing, because in the game, they know they're going to have the result and depend on a man, which they're going to so hate. So that's why they're so mad. But anyway, let's get a couple of precepts real quick, and then we're going to get into Kim Iverson's video, because at the end of the day, the rich is the rich and the poor is the poor, and that's just what it boils down to. All right, so this is the book of Micah 6, and I'm going to start at verses. Let's start at verses. Who have appointed are a treasure of wickedness in the house of the wicked, the same measure that is abominable. Yeah, this is good. Let's start at verses. Let's start at verses 9. It says, the Lord's voice cried into the city, and the man of wisdom should see thy name. Hear ye the rod, and who have appointed it. Right. It says the man of wisdom should see thy name. That mean, hey, Nate, you ain't got no wisdom. Because you don't see the name of the Heavenly Father. You trying to do away with it. But it says, are there yet the treasures of the wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scanter measures that is abominable? Yeah, and the treasures of the house of the wicked is, for one thing, these wicked policies, man, this evilness, this wickedness. All right. It says, are there yet treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked? Yeah, this devil got us in captivity. His philosophies, man, his jargon, all that. It's just wickedness. He has the power seat. And it says here, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? Because it's deceit at the end of the day. Like, this bill was really to benefit you jakes. It sounds good to the American taxpayers, but you got to understand that a lot of you Israelites make up the unemployment rate anyway. So this really don't benefit you. Okay, the working class, which is essentially, what they would consider the middle class, which there's no more middle class, is a bunch of, basically a lot of baby boomers and mid-age Edomites. Yeah, Jakes too, the different tribes and so forth. But a lot of you Jakes, you rank pretty high in the unemployment rate. So at the end of the day, you ain't really getting any benefactor from this. Most of you don't want to work anyway, especially you women. You just want to sit home, on your hide and collect child support and food stamps and Section 8. That's all you want. While going to the club with your $300 lace front on, and doing it. That's what you want to do. That day is played out. But it says here, should I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? It says, for the rich men thereof are full of violence, and the inhabitants thereof have spoken lies, and their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. So it's, at the end of the day, it's deceit. It sounds good. It makes a good point, and you surface level, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this sounds a big, beautiful bill, but what's on the backside of it? Like going into this whole Project 2025 agenda, this is essentially what it is, See, he started with the mass deportation, then you got alligator Alcatraz, and it's not looking good for our people. All right, so let's go here to the book of Ecclesiastes 5. And I'm going to start at verses 12. And it reads, it says, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. Yeah. Okay, the scriptures say that they can't rest unless they cause something to fall. You see? So Esau with his wealth, End of the day, it's about pricing you niggas out, getting rid of you, you know, keeping you at the bottom while they're staying rich, because essentially this will benefit billionaires. Okay, if they're doing tax cuts for the poor, you better believe that there's always going to be tax cuts for the rich. And there have really been tax cuts for the poor. I mean, they say, we're going to cut taxes, we're going to cut taxes, and they never do. Now, this bill may seek to change that, but if you saving 16% or whatever, a paycheck or however it may be, or you don't, you're not getting taxed on overtime, and they can essentially stop that because they can say, well, since you're not getting taxed on overtime, we just ain't gotta give you overtime. So hey, within the 40-hour work week, then hey, that's it. Because of my job, I mean, certain departments can get overtime, but we can't. If we end up getting overtime, unless you're lucky and they end up putting it on your check, you gotta flex those hours. So normally I don't work on Saturdays, but if I do an event on a Saturday and I work say if I work 2-3 hours, I gotta take that 2 or 3 hours and I gotta flex it, which meaning that instead of me getting the incentive, the money, they exchange it for time off. So I get like 3 hours off or something like that if I need. You see, that's how they do that. So in retrospect, they don't have to give you anything extra. They can say, well, look, there's no overtime. They're just not in our budget. So that solves that problem, right? One more precept, and I'll play the Kim Iverson video. I'll play like 10 minutes, I'll play a couple of minutes of it because it gets meaty. But this is the book of Sirach 4:1. It says, my son, defraud not the poor of his living, and make not the needy eyes to wait long. Yeah, and we've been totally defrauded. We've been defunded. Okay, we've been destabilized. We've been totally pillaged. You see, we've been totally spoiled. We're spoils of war. This is why our nation is in the predicament they're in. We have no generational wealth. Okay, we have no businesses. We have nothing. And a small black-owned businesses, usually they don't last too long because with Jake, it's just a matter of Jake trying to overcapitalize on his own people. Greed. Here, Jake will sell you he'll sell you a hamburger for $15, and yet you go down the store to a mom and pop shop and get a hamburger for $8-9, even though that's essentially too expensive for a burger. But Jake put taxes on it, man. Like I was on a book, and you got some like food trucks out in this area, and some of them are ran by Jake's, and the ingredients of course the ingredients are not pure. They probably go to Walmart and get their food because it's a little cheaper. They probably get a couple of pounds of ground beef and this and this and that. Get some golden crinkle fries, and they fry the shit in the canola oil. But yet they'll charge you $25 for a burger and fry and 3 wings. But yet you essentially didn't even pay that for a pound of ground beef. It's just Jake they tend to do things left. They worse than the Edomites in most cases. But it says, make not the hungry soul sorrowful, neither provoke a man in his distress, and add not more trouble to a heart that is vexed, and defer not to give him that's in need. And we've been deferred. Okay, when you think of a deferred payment, it's not necessarily that the payment goes away, but they'll take it and put it on the back burner, and essentially you have to pay it back and also pay interest on it. They do that with car loans. I think they can do it with house payments too, if I'm not mistaken. But anything that's a loan, I think you can do what they call a deferred payment. They take that payment and tax it on to the back of the loan. And essentially they do that because there's more interest that accumulates over time. So while you think you're getting a break, I can't make my car payment this week. And then, okay, that's fine. We just take that payment and put it on the back of the loan. Wait a minute. How about you just don't charge me for a period? That's the reason why I'm calling in. But instead they tax you. So it's like these little subtle little things they do underneath the curtain that you don't see, but it comes back and bites you in the ass later. That's how this devil gets down. Okay, he's deceitful like that. That's why this place got to burn, man, because it's a trap. It's a pit. But it says here, reject not the supplication of the afflicted, neither turn away the face from a poor man. And that's what Esau did. Okay, the scriptures say we should go to our enemies for one of all things. You literally got to go to this man to breathe. Okay, you got to go to his medical institutions. You have to get educated at his schools, at his college institutions. You have to live in his apartments. You have to drive his vehicles. You have to wear his clothes. You have to work his jobs. Okay, that sounds like captivity to me. And it says here, turn not away thine eye from the needy, and give him none occasion to curse thee. It says, for if he curse thee in the bitterness of his soul, his prayer should be heard of him that made him, right? So, yeah, man, it's scripture say defraud not the living, and we've been totally defrauded. So this big beautiful bill is it's not looking too good at the end of the day, on the back end rather. All right, because they look at it like when I was reading the caption, it says that I was going to make America's economy stronger. Well, I beg to differ because for one thing, what essentially helps drive an economy is the money that people are investing back in the economy and building up infrastructure. And on top of that, infrastructure. And you don't build on your infrastructure. Okay, people come here and they're bored. They're not impressed. Like when you go to China or you go to, what's the name of that place over there, Dubai? You go to Japan and you look at these Asian countries. Hell, even different parts of Europe, you're pretty like, and you come here, you're like, this is outdated. Like bullet trains and so forth, because you put all your money into the military industrial complex, and basically you rob from your people and you give it to them rats in Israel. That's what you do, because you're being funded by lobbyists. So one last precept and I'll go to the video. This is the book of Jeremiah. I think it's 51. 51, and let's start at verses 8. It says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her and take balm for our pain. If so, she may be healed, but she's not going to be healed because the deficit is through. Okay, $4 trillion deficit adding $4 more trillion to the deficit in a short amount of time, you're asking for a collapse overnight. And eventually they're going to put a plug on this place. And it says here, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. So forsake her and let us go everyone into his own country. It says for her judgment reaching into the heavens and is lifted up even into the sky. So this is the judgment of the Heavenly Father, So anyway, I'm going to play a couple of videos, giving all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Lord's will, you will edify. To the next lesson. Shalom.
What if I told you that everything that's going on in today's society with like the big beautiful bill that just got passed and all these laws and that are being put in place is not being orchestrated by Donald Trump? It runs a hell of a lot deeper than what you think. And yes, he's the one he's the spokesperson. That's what it is. He's the spokesperson for what's going on. He's the one that everybody is hating because he's the one that's putting everything out there verbally. But Trump is nothing but a puppet. He's not the one moving the strings. The puppeteers are. Who are the puppeteers? The founders of the Heritage Foundation. That is who everyone needs to be looking into. And I promise, if y'all had read Project 2025, y'all would know this. All those bills that he signed on Inauguration Day, all those bills that he's been signing, he doesn't know exactly what he's signing. He's just signing them. And that's
enough of that.
If the bill that is being voted on right now goes through, I have the answers for you in this video. Be sure to interact, like, comment, share, send it to people who need this information. Adults age 55 to 64, basically any adult under the age of 65. So the new stricter work requirements raise the age of mandatory work study participation from 49 to as high as 65. So under this one, about 6 million adults in that age group could be disqualified. Parents with children age 7 and older. The bill redefines the exempt dependent child from under 18 to under 7. Single parents with children between 7 and 17 would have to meet 80 hours a month of work or volunteering to keep SNAP. Many could fall out of eligibility. Even those employed, like the mom juggling 2 jobs and school in Maryland, may be disenrolled due to bureaucratic burdens and tightened eligibility rules. Veterans, homeless, and other vulnerable groups, these groups are not exempt from the new requirements and would face the same work, study, volunteering rules. Rural poor areas could see massive losses. For example, Houston's 5th Ward in Texas could lose up to 155,000 SNAP recipients. The CBO estimates over 2 million SNAP beneficiaries could lose benefits. Some reports suggest up to 6 million adults could be affected by the work requirement shift. The House bill alone would cut nearly $300 billion from SNAP funding through 2034. To me, the most concerning part of this is the parents of children 7 or older. So that means if a mom has 3 kids and they're 7, 8, and 9, and she can't work because daycare in the United States is insane, she's going to lose her SNAP benefits. Even if
This is both a dashcam and an intelligent anti-theft system. It's the groundbreaking.
Okay, well, it is official. The big, beautiful bill has passed.
The yeas are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
Okay, so what's in it for you? Is this going to help you? Is this going to hurt you? Who benefits the most from this? As you can see, every single Democrat voted no to the bill. Almost every single Republican ended up voting yes to this bill, except for 2. There were 2 holdouts, those 2 holdouts being Thomas Massie, who said that he did not like how this was adding trillions of dollars to the national debt.
Fair use, fair use. Not making no money from this video.
And the other person who voted against this was Fitzpatrick. This would be, what is his full name? He's from Pennsylvania. Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania also said that he could not vote for this. He ended up not voting for it. He said he could not abide by the Senate's version of the bill, viewed by many to have even harsher cuts to social services than the version passed by the House that he had backed. So he had at one point backed the bill. Then when it went to the Senate, amendments were made. When it came back to the House, he said, I can't support this. So the reason he couldn't, he said, quote, I voted to strengthen Medicaid protections, to permanently extend middle-class tax cuts, for enhanced small business tax relief, and for historic investments in our border security and our military. However, it was the Senate's amendments to Medicaid, in addition to several other Senate provisions, that altered the analysis for our Pennsylvania 1 community. So he's thinking of his constituents. He says the original House language was written in a way that protected our community. The Senate amendments fell short of our standard. So that is why Fitzpatrick voted against it. Massie said, although there were some conservative wins in the budget reconciliation bill, I voted no on final passage because it would significantly increase U.S. budget deficits in the near term, negatively impacting all Americans through sustained inflation and high interest rates, he wrote. So that is why he ultimately, Massie, as he said, he would always be voting against this because of the massive amount of spending that it had in it. Okay, so the big question is what's in it for you, and who is actually going to, who's going to benefit the most for this bill? Well, we'll get to it here. I've got a video to play for you of them talking about the Medicaid cuts in particular, and it was actually Steve Scalise talking about it, and it's really telling when you look at what's actually in this bill, who they actually boosted and who's benefiting the most. So let's go over it. There are some key tax reliefs for average people. So these are some of the wins for you. The largest proportional tax cuts are for low and middle income workers, although the analysis shows that the biggest winners are, of course, the high income earners. They're actually going to get the largest tax breaks, but a lot of the tax breaks in the bill are for lower and middle income workers. So according to the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation, those making less than $50,000 receive the biggest percentage tax cuts. And that would be if you make less than $15,000, you're getting a 16.4% cut. If you make between $15,000 and $30,000, you're getting a 27.1% cut. $30,000 to $40,000, you're getting a 9.5% cut. If you make $40,000 to $50,000, you're getting a 7.2% cut. These cuts are delivered through an increased standard deduction, expanded child tax credits, and new tax breaks for childcare tips and overtime pay. There's now no taxes on tips and overtime. Workers in tipped positions and those earning overtime will see new tax incentives. Tips and overtime pay are exempt from federal taxes for most workers through 2028, increasing the take-home pay for many service and hourly workers. Now, I don't like this. And I'll tell you why I don't like the no taxes on tips. Now, no taxes on overtime, I think is great, but no taxes on tips. The problem with that is we live in a it's like overzealous. The tipping culture has gone way out of control. And most of us hate the tipping culture. It's only going to get worse. Have you noticed that now they're asking for like 22% for okay service, 25% for good service, 30% for excellent service? You know, it used to be 15%, 18% was being generous. Then it boosted up to 20%. Now we're seeing 22%, 25%, and even up to 30%. And if the tips are not taxed, you're going to see a lot of push for more tips because they're going to have, it's a not taxed income. So why wouldn't they push for you to give them more money that they don't have to pay taxes on? So I think we're going to actually see a lot of us enjoying life less. We're not going to be able to go out as much because there's going to be an expectation for higher tips. And a lot of us are just not going to want to do that. So, look, on the flip side, you could look at this as a kind of a silver lining thing, which is now you're probably going to be eating out less, which means America might get skinnier. Maybe we'll eat at home more, we'll cook at home more, and maybe for our overall health that will be beneficial. So that's the silver lining. Maybe we'll spend more meals at home inviting people over. Maybe we will bond with our neighbors and our family members more because we'll do more of that stay-at-home cooking and having family meals. And so maybe it's actually, like I said, silver lining, it'll be better. But because people will start staying home because the servers are asking for more money, they're going to ask for even more money when you go out because they're trying to compensate for those who are no longer going out. So, I don't know if that's such the win that maybe the service industry thinks it is. Senior bonus deduction. Older Americans age 65 plus can claim a special deduction up to $6,000 per person in the Senate version to reduce their taxable income, providing targeted relief for retirees and seniors on fixed incomes. So that is going to be good for seniors. Charitable giving deduction for non-itemizers. For the first time, those who take the standard deduction can also deduct up to $1,000 for a single person or $2,000 joint in charitable donations, making it easier for average Americans to benefit from giving. So that's good. Auto loan interest deduction. Taxpayers can deduct up to $10,000 in interest on new car loans for vehicles assembled in the U.S., which could help families financing new cars. So that could be a good thing. Other notable provisions, expansion of child care access and child tax credit. The bill expands access to affordable child care, increases the child tax credit, aiming to support working families with young children. There's also now that newborn savings account that establishes savings accounts for newborns intended to help families start saving for children's futures. Now, where it gets ugly and where there are the cuts that a lot of people are saying, look, yeah, okay, you're cutting my taxes, great. But actually the cuts you're making to services are going to make it to where I actually have less money. So I'm going to have to spend more on medical care, for example. Even though you're giving me a tax break, it doesn't actually even out. It actually makes it to where I'm taking home less.
How Gen X are getting their teenage bodies back.
So this is my mom and this is my grandma. I recently
So the cuts to Medicaid and food assistance. Now this one, look, I'm all about if you want to cut Medicaid and if you want to cut food stamps for people who are actually working and you would rather, I think it's great to tax them less. In fact, I think we should all pay way fewer taxes, like a lot. In fact, I think we should abolish income tax altogether. But to the cuts to Medicaid, this and food assistance, and if you're only getting a moderate cut in taxation, it's not actually going to help you boost your ability to acquire healthcare and food, if you know what I mean. It doesn't balance it out. So this is where people are getting upset. The bill includes substantial cuts to safety net programs like Medicaid and SNAP, and the new federal work requirements could lead to millions losing Medicaid or food assistance, especially among low-income and vulnerable populations. So there's a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump who are in these groups, and they might find that they struggle a lot more. Now, the GOP position is pull yourself up by the bootstraps and go get a job, go get a better job. And that is really challenging right now in a very competitive job market. People are reporting really not, yes, they say, oh, we just created a bunch of new jobs, but they don't say, oh, great paying jobs that are full-time. A lot of gig jobs, a lot of part-time jobs are being created. A lot of, instead of having one good job where you could support your wife and 3 kids and live in a middle-income house and go on vacation once a year to Yellowstone, people aren't able to do that anymore. And instead, rather than having one solid job that could support your wife and 3 kids and all of that, you're now having to work 3 odd jobs in order to make ends meet because you're having a hard time finding the one full-time job. Or even if you do have a full-time job, it doesn't pay enough, and so you have to get a part-time job on top of it. So the quality of life for people who are trying to support families, especially a family of 5, that really should be the baseline. What does it take to support a family of 5 in America? That should be the question, and we should ensure that it's that people are able to get to that point, and without having to work 10 jobs between 2 people and putting the kids in daycare. That would be the ideal. So we'll see how the Medicaid and food assistance, the cuts go on that. And that being said, let me play for you this Steve Scalise this video, because it really, well, then we'll get into what they boosted in the big, beautiful bill and why people like Thomas Massey are so against it. But here's Steve Scalise talking about 35-year-olds playing video games, and that's why they need to cut Medicaid.
Before, if you're disabled on Medicaid right now, you've been crowded out of those programs by people turning down work. Able-bodied people, 35-year-olds sitting at home playing video games. They're going to now have to go get a job. That's right. And by the way, that's a good thing for them. Their mom doesn't want them sitting in the basement playing video games anyway. But now it no longer will be crowding out Medicaid for the truly needy people who deserve it.
Okay, the reality is that no one's being crowded out of Medicaid, so that is not true. It's not like somebody who really, really needs it can't get it because the 35-year-old playing video games refused to go get a job, and so he's on Medicaid. That's not actually happening. But let's talk. So here's the problem with this bill. Is that they're saying to you, you need to get a job and you need to just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Meanwhile, and we're going to cut these services to you because we don't want to give them we don't want to give them to you anymore. We don't think you deserve them. Meanwhile, the bill turns the military budget into a bloated $1.5 trillion annually budget. Now they're getting about $1.5 trillion. So you heard about the $1 trillion increase. It's actually closer to $1.5 trillion annually that the military is getting through various different, they're doing these various different, for one, you just increase the military budget itself, but then they're also adding money for nuclear weapons, for building AI. There's a lot of money that goes into AI, but it's AI for military warfare AI. So AI-driven munitions, also hypersonic missiles, one-way attack drones. They're doing